It will be very difficult if you do the, oh, I'm walking to the line and futzing with my phone. So please do sign in now if you think that there's any chance. Actually, you should be signing in anyways. We're in a very large room. And who knows, this is our first working group meeting. It's nice if the IETF can get a feeling for actually how many, people might come to future PQUIP meetings. So it's 12 straight up. We'll give it, actually no one's coming in, so we can do it. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming for the first meeting of the PQ working group at IETF 116. We have some exciting agenda items to go through, so let's just start ready. Just to give you a little bit of an understanding of what this group is about, this stands for Post-Quantum Reusing Protocols, and it came out to be after several discussions on the SAC mailing list and later on the PQC at IETF.org mailing list. If you want to continue any kind of discussions of the talks that we see here or any other important topic that you think it's important to bring up to this community, please send an email to the mailing list. We also have now a working group charter, which is that the output of this group is expended to inform protocol work and guidance developed by other working groups in the IETF. Consistent with other IETF working groups, this working group will also rely on outside entities, for example, on CFIG, to define and assess new PQC mechanisms.
That's just one paragraph out of a longer charter. So please, if you're like, can I bring up such and such, please read the charter first. Why don't I do these since I've been here much longer than you? It's the end of the week. There's a note well that many of you have seen. I will show it again very briefly here. You can't read it, it's too small. But you agreed to this note well when you registered, but it's worth reading again. I know it's the end of the day. I'm not suggesting you read it now, but the note well applies also to the mailing list, not just to the face-to-face meetings. So please do read that. It actually applies to many places, so thank you. So again, here's the obligatory, you can't read it. And then we also have the IETF Code of Conduct, which in one bullet is please treat each other with respect. It is also worth reading. And again, it applies to the mailing list as much as it does to face-to-face meetings. Here are a couple of excerpts from it, but it is well worth reading. It's the end of the week. Some of us are getting a little bit cranky. Some of us didn't get enough sleep last night. It really is important for us to treat each other well. It is easy to have a working group where people think that they can contribute and then feel like they aren't welcome because someone was growling at them or someone was growling at somebody else and they feel unsafe. So, we've got 90 minutes left on this meeting, so let's be extra nice to each other.
Yes, we have not a lot, but 3 items to go in the agenda. Yeah. Okay. The first one is going to be having a little bit of a draft that has been in the making, is the hybrid terminology document. We also have a document that is currently also in the making, which is a guidance of PQC for engineers. And of course, if we were part recently of the mailing list, there was also this idea to create this grand list of working groups and protocols that should be looking at PQC algorithms or that are currently having specific documents to take into account PQC. That is not going to become a draft or an RFC, it's just a GitHub list that we are currently going to maintain as part of the working group. And then of course, at the end, we can go for other working group business.
So Sophia and I have one already for other working group business, but there might be others after that, all depending on time. But we'll hit that at the end. Any bashing of the agenda at this point? Not seeing any in the queue. Why aren't you listed? Oh, you are listed as a chair. Good. I was about to say, you are as much of a chair as I am. You're a more awake chair than I am. So here, why don't we start with this? Yeah.
Yes. So first we have, of course, the hybrid terminology document, which is something that was brought up because there has been some misunderstanding of what a specific kind of words we should be using when we refer to post-quantum. So we're actually discussing about the terminology. We have also had some really fruitful discussion on the mailing list. There has been a disagreement about whether we should create new, hopefully better terminology, or we should just reuse what is currently right now is being used at other standardizations body or from the academic literature. And right now, we actually believe that it's ready to become a working group document.
And so let's, at this point in the agenda, we can go into that, which is hybrid. Oh, wait. What do I do here? Oh, I have to stop and start. That seems silly. Share.
Okay, we have Florence to talk about precisely that specific draft. Go ahead.
Awesome, thanks. Hi everyone, last session of the week, but it's okay because it's the most exciting session of the week. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the terminology for post-quantum traditional hybrid schemes, name asterisk, name still subject to change, draft that Paul and Sophia have just been talking about. Next slide, please. So I just really wanted to, as quickly as possible, sort of introduce this draft. I know that not everyone will have been in Sec Dispatch when we discussed it last time. I wasn't planning in going into the details of some of the discussion on the mailing list, but there's a few bonus slides at the end that you can look at after or now if you want. Yeah, so, you know, we all know that IETF protocols are going to need to be updated for post-quantum algorithms, and that during this transition period, there is a desire for protocols which use both post-quantum and traditional algorithms, like hybrids. Terminology is a challenge for a range of reasons, which I'll go into on a later slide. So at Sec Dispatch 2 meetings ago, we proposed this draft, and adoption of a draft on hybrid terminology is a milestone for PQUIP. We've published a few more versions since Sec Dispatch. The 02 version is up now. Please take a look. Next slide, please. Cool, yeah, so this is the proposal. Kind of the aims are, I guess the aims correspond to the challenges with terminology. Ensuring consistency across, at the very least, different protocols within the IETF, but ideally like different standards in other bodies, different organizations, and as much as possible to have, to line up with the academic community. We also want to make it clearer what security properties a particular hybrid construction claims. There are multiple reasons why you might want to use a hybrid, and it's useful to have some language for that. We want to ensure easier comparison of solutions, kind of related to the above point. And we also want to pull all the discussion about terminology into this draft so that everyone else can get on with defining their protocols while we talk about the language. Cool, next slide, please. This is the content. I won't go through it, but this is it. You can see the slide. Next slide, please. So yeah, I said I'd be as quick as possible. I suppose the big thing, the question is this ready for adoption by PQUIP? And also, if not, like, why not? I can keep updating this draft with sort of things what I think, but that's probably not very useful. So I'd like to know what the group thinks. And then I suppose perhaps for the mailing list, but I'm happy to hear it in the mic line, like, does the language we've got at the minute work? Are we missing things? Stuff like that. So yeah, that's all I had to say. And yeah, the remaining slides, do take a look if you're interested in my thoughts on some of the choices we've made so far. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, we already have some people on the queue. So Diego.
My apologies, it was not intended, but just to say one thing that, no, when it comes to the work in particular, we have suffered this in other groups in which people started to work with naming the same thing differently or using the same name for different things. And having this is quite interesting. So it's, when it comes to thinking about adopting, etc., if you are, I think it's something that is really needed to start with. So, yeah.
Thank you. We have Eckhart.
Yeah, so I certainly think this is ready for adoption. Given that it is a charter item of this working group and it is the only submitted draft, it's silly to have it be an individual submission while you continue to revise it. Can you go back one slide?
Yes.
I do think that PQT is just like an infeasible, name here. Like it's got to be a word, and it's got to be like one word. And I know hybrid is overloaded. Maybe we can go for something else, but like people aren't going to say PQ/T. So the way terminology works, in organizations like this is like you can write as many documents as you want, but it's like a mass adoption problem. And so it's got to be a word that is good enough that people are going to be like, that people are going to adopt it on their own without you having to go to every meeting and be like, stop saying hybrid, you got to say PQT.
If you have suggestions for a word, then that would be great. If it's just hybrid, that's also fine. But I know a lot of people don't like just using hybrid.
No, I mean hybrid is horribly overloaded as well. It's like 3 different things now. So, but so maybe I don't have one, but we got to have something. Fine.
Thanks.
Once we adopt it, we will probably have at least one poll on the list. I suspect we will have multiple.
We have Aaron online, maybe?
Hi, Aaron. We're already using this draft in the OpenPGP draft, and we found it very useful and comfortable, so I support adoption. Thank you for the work.
Thanks, Aaron.
Mike Answorth. So thank you for writing this, Flo. I think this is great to at least concentrate a focal point for all this discussion. Sort of as a response to Ecker, I find it useful to disambiguate, well, first of all, like HPKE style hybrids, where you're using RSA with AES style hybrid, from PQT hybrids, from PQ/PQ hybrids, or from traditional hybrids. Like the point of that qualifier was to allow you to talk about PQT versus PQ/PQ as separate things, right? Yeah, so I mean, we could come up with a different word. We had a long bar session trying to figure out what we were going to stick as the qualifier before you need something before the word hybrid. What do you put there? One thing we came up with is homogeneous. Because one of the properties here is this is chem plus chem equals chem, which is different from the other use of a hybrid, which is asymmetric plus symmetric equals HPKE. So maybe they're all bad words, and I think what's chosen here is the best we've got. So suggestions, please.
I don't know if we want Florence coming up with the list of bad words.
I'll keep those to myself. We've not come up with something perfect, but suggestions welcome.
Guilin?
Yeah, thank you. Guilin Wang from Huawei International. So I saw quite some emails discussing about the terminologies for PQUIP. So I also contributed some noise there. So I would like to say that, like the chairs or anyone else, is it possible to give some summary to highlight what is the discussion result? Like some of the most important concepts. What are the suggestions there? So which we would like to go? Otherwise, because discussion could be very various.
So the chairs can do that, but the authors can do that
which one
better.
we will take or would like to take.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, something like this.
Yeah.
Are you asking about the discussion on the list so far, like specifically, or about the draft more generally?
Yeah, that's right.
So I suppose
because even for some very basic concepts, post-quantum cryptography or quantum safe or quantum resistant cryptography, we may have different ideas.
So in the interest of time, I guess I'll do a 30-second review of what's happened. But I would point people towards the last 3 slides of this presentation, which cover this. Most of the discussion on the list so far has just been about the language to use for kind of the algorithm types. So post-quantum algorithms and traditional algorithms. So
Yeah, also
traditional
including this
algorithms
one. That's right.
being algorithms which are based off integer factorization or the discrete log problem in your field of choice. So I guess the post-quantum discussion was, do we like the phrase post-quantum algorithms, quantum safe algorithm, quantum resistant algorithm? Quantum, we probably think they're sort of resistant safe, maybe algorithms. And then, yeah, there was a similar discussion about the phrase for traditional algorithms. Yeah, I have some justification on the later slides for why I've made the suggestions I have. That doesn't mean we have to stick with them. And I'm happy to summarize that on the list later if that's useful.
Yeah, that's what would be great, I think.
And again, we probably will be adopting the draft so that there will be revs of the draft as well. We don't have to stick with what's there now.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
good.
Rowan?
Hi, Rowan May. So yeah, PQ-/T, it looks like something unpronounceable. But if you give it, it may be that like JOTs, like JSON Web Tokens, that providing a pronounceable, calling it picket, for example, packet or picket or something, might make it a little bit more acceptable.
Thanks. So, here, I can actually, you can say, and I'll switch back to.
Yes, so thank you very much, Flo, for that presentation. So any other kind of discussions or questions that you have about the draft, please send them to the mailing list or find the speaker also after this working group meeting.
And then we will soon have a call on the list in like 2 weeks or so to adopt it, but that doesn't stop the conversation beforehand. Okay?
Next agenda, we have another document that we have been working on, but it's in very early stages, which is the Post-Quantum for Engineers document. Right now, what we mainly would like is that someone takes a closer ownership of that document so we can actually move it forward. And some of this material is already in RFC 9340 from the architectural principles from the quantum internet. But we are not going to be discussing any of the quantum part, but rather post-quantum part here in this working group. And X9 also has a long introductory document that is listed on this slide. So we need also someone to take the ownership of the document, as I said, but also we need to actually define the scope of this document. So please, someone be a volunteer to actually do this writing and actually define the proper scoping of this. And right now, this is a little bit too early to adopt.
So Tim, you're in the queue.
If I can get help from other people, I'm actually willing to own it and do a lot of writing. I would actually like to start writing soon, and so I actually have a request from the room. This is PQ for Engineers, and I'm actually the co-chair of the group that wrote the X9 document. And I was at the first NIST conference, so I've been following this for about 5 years. But the biggest problem with being an expert in the field is it's impossible to know what the non-experts are thinking. And so my idea is I'm thinking of starting a thread on the mailing list of questions that people might have who are new to this. And the rule would be every sentence in your follow-up has to end in a question mark. And have everybody just throw every question that you want this document to add into that thread. And when I come back from vacation in 2 weeks, I'll go through all the questions and I'll try to organize them and I'll try to come up with a scope of a document, kind of an outline that would cover that. So I think that's probably the best way forward.
Thanks, Tim. So it's not a working group document yet, and the first draft is some scribbles that I have. It's yours.
We do have a GitHub repository for that, so we will probably be sending that again to the mailing list so you can actually properly see it. Any other participation from the working group that want to comment on anything regarding this document?
And just for those of you who haven't read your mail this morning, one of the authors of 9340 this morning, or last night, I guess, sent a message to the mailing list about something that they're doing separate from the QIRG of making an undergraduate course and such. So that stuff is great, but that's one of the co-authors of 9340. So we will talk with them about either using their material or something like that. If you haven't read it, go for it. The first section in 9340 is, I think, one of the best ones I've read, and I've read a bunch of them. Before we move on, Guilin?
Yeah, so Guilin from Huawei International again. So actually, I do not have a particular comments for this document, but I actually have a suggestion for the whole group, because my idea is that maybe we should give some presentation about, okay, what is the current progress of the PQ algorithm, including the program from NIST, together with some general background about the PQC migration or transmission, like why the security threat is big. Yeah, so why we have such group? Because my idea is that so many IETF participants here, but not everyone knows the background very well.
So that may be part of this document as well. I mean, please bring it to the list, but that may be something that would be appropriate in the document, but there would have to be discussion on the list for that.
But on the other side, I mean, other way, maybe some presentations like for this meeting or next meeting or interim meeting, maybe good for others to know better.
Sure.
The background.
It won't happen at this meeting.
Like the streets, what is the authorities from different countries. They may have some suggestions, they may have some white papers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all of the information should be very helpful for others to know, okay, what is this group doing? Right. Why it is important?
So please bring that to the list. I'm not sure that that would be appropriate in this working group, but it sounds like it would be of interest to some. So thank you.
Yeah, just tell the audience what we are doing here. Important.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Rod?
Hi, Rod Van Meter, Keele University in the WIDE project. I'm the author of 9340 that Paul mentioned a minute ago, and it's our textbook on quantum communications. And on the mailing list, there's instructions for how to get it and how to contribute to it. We would love to have any comments or contributions on it. And all of the material in it is or will be CC by SA, so feel free to reuse it as you want.
Thanks. And I suspect we're going to have more interaction between this working group and that research group over time, even though our charters are quite different. And as we mentioned here, this working group will not be discussing quantum internet unless it actually becomes relevant to making quantum computers. Hopefully we're done with the working group by then. And we're not going to be doing QKD, but that's happening actively in a research group. And so if there's a lot of overlap between the two lists, that's very cool. Okay, very good, thanks. This one's yours.
Okay, the last big item actually that we have currently been working on as part of the working group is this big grand list where we actually look at the different protocols that the IETF has and to see if any of the participants of the IETF or the RTF have been proposing on how to migrate them to post-quantum cryptography. So right now that exists as a GitHub repository, and what we will be mostly asking is that if you want to contribute, please send either a PR or send comments to the mailing list. We are not going to be adopting this either as a draft or an RFC. It's not going to be coming down, but rather we're going to be just having it as a list that we maintain in order for us to be to have a better sense of where the IETF is standing in terms of the migration of post-quantum cryptography. This also is going to continuously evolving as the rest of the IETF is going to start to deal with the PQC. It is done as a README file, so it's really easy to just send a PR because you can edit in line with GitHub at that moment, or you can also send a PR or send just comments into the mailing list. So if you have any concern about that specific document, just please state so, or if you want to see something else develop out of it, please let us know. Right now, how is the structure? It is a structure in actually having a protocol-independent algorithm or cryptographic specification. It deals with PQC reporting protocols and migration techniques, and also improvements adjacent to PQC. We also added just recently also some implementations to be listed, or where you can actually find implementations of different post-quantum algorithms. And eventually we should also have a list of where you can have experimental implementations of actually integrating post-quantum algorithms into the different protocols. There's currently a lot of libraries trying to implement this into, for example, TLS or QUIC. So we can also be listing that. Or for interop testing, specifically from interop testing, we have a lot of wonderful people from the LiveOQS that have a lot of libraries to properly interop test in different post-quantum algorithms. And also security area protocols with no specific, with no PQC specific action needed for the moment.
So before I go on to the next slide, so if you look at it, you will see lots of listings in each section. That's an opinionated list. If people think we should have something, move something from one section to another, please go ahead and suggest it. That, we want everything listed. We made a guess, other people made guesses for us. And if there are additional sections to add and such like that, all of that's quite open right now. And again, it's not going to be a draft or God forbid an RFC. So don't think of this as how would this fit into an RFC structure. Just, bring stuff to us. Go. You're up next too.
Yes, so basically what we want to ask you today is what topics are missing. I have a specific question as well, in terms that right now we're also listing some documents that do not deal specifically with post-quantum cryptography, but rather are enhancements sometimes to protocols in order to deal with the post-quantum migration. And there has been some debate on the mailing list regarding if we should include those drafts or not. And also what line items are missing. So if you feel like something is currently being developed in other working group that we don't know about it, please again point it out, or send a PR, or send that document to the mailing list.
That's the last one. Yes.
And with that, we already have people on the queue. So Human.
Yes, hi. Human with Goldie Nokia. So I've been through some of the drafts here, and I see there's a lot of changes to the TLS, IPsec, et cetera, which is IEEE specific. But obviously, when it comes to the transport itself, and we are talking about fridge size type of routers, that they are very latency sensitive, they are very throughput sensitive. We are talking about 400 gig type of transport here. There might be other type of protocols that are not IETF specific, IEEE as an example. So I'm wondering, is this working group very, very high level is also going to be addressing this type of future developments in, encryption for this kind of massive transport? And secondly, is that if there are some changes into IEEE specifically to massage layer 2 encryption into MPLS and IP, would this working group be the place for that?
We just made an executive decision during the middle of yours to say, yes, things outside are good. And then you said layer 2. Roman, would you like to help us here, since we made a decision, but you're our AD?
I already like this working group.
Yeah, so just as a general reminder of the chartering, the purpose of this working group is to bring together all of the post-quantum cryptography discussions that don't otherwise have a very protocol-specific home. So we are free to discuss, I think, up and down the stack. The thing that we will not do in this working group is actual protocol work.
But you're cool with us doing IEEE? You're the ones with the list. You said IEEE and...
Yeah, I mean, if the question is, are we fine listing non-IETF stuff on that in that markdown? Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
This is the place to kind of talk about it. Just my gate is we do not do protocol work here.
One thing, precisely to take into mind is that we can list other protocols that indeed have been looking into the post-quantum migration. The ones that come to my mind right now is, for example, Signal or WireGuard, that are specific to the IETF, but there has been some theory and some experimental work. But how they decide to migrate is more of them to decide rather for us to actually decide.
Okay, maybe I take 1 minute to give you an example, and maybe I'll do a presentation in the next IETF. To give you an example, when it comes to low latency, high throughput, IEEE 802.1ae does the trick, right? I mean, it shoots through packet, light speed, no latency, go through it, but it's layer 2 header. You know, you put like a VLAN into clear, it's layer 2, but you can mess around with the header, start putting IP MPLS into clear, using the same standard, but the problem becomes MKA has to be IP now, MKA over IP. So these are the type of stuff that I think there are some movement in the industry, routing specifically, and I'm hoping that this working group will start addressing some of these stuff that comes specifically into the IP domain.
Roman gets to do the interrupt here. Sorry, Deb.
Yeah. Again, I don't pretend to kind of understand all the nuances of addressing the situation you're kind of describing. The general bounds, I'll reiterate again, is this is a place where we could potentially talk about the broad scope of all the places where we might have kind of an issue. We could even get to the point of talking about what my candidate solutions look like. But at some point, there is actual work to do and protocol work to do, perhaps, where we got to write a draft, we got to adopt a draft and kind of move forward. That would not happen here. We would need to think about whether that's appropriate kind of someplace else in the IETF and then kind of move forward from there.
Don't step away. So we had just talked about like IEEE. So let's say IEEE is dealing with something that would be a draft here, but they do it in a PDF or a Word file. It's been a long time since I've done IEEE. You're okay with us putting that in our table here and having some discussion on the mailing list saying that might relate to this and such like that?
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah. So we are not. Oh, Russ is going to do a
I'm jumping the queue
interrupt.
because
Yes.
the liaison manager between the IETF and the IEEE.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
There's nothing to be done in 802.1ae. It already has AES 256. It only uses symmetric crypto. So IEEE 802.1ar is where all the certificate work's done, the work being done in LAMPs, they can import or not. I don't think there's an issue here. If I'm missing something, please raise the flag, and raising the flag here makes complete sense.
Right. And if you find that there is stuff going on, even if it's just to have a pointer in our table saying AR, please look at AR. We can have things in the table that say, here is a group somewhere else working on some post-quantum algorithm stuff. It doesn't have to be a document or a protocol.
So what's
Whoever was standing here before was very tall. I'm gonna go sit down. The last thing I will just reiterate kind of on scope. This is early days. This is literally the first time we're meeting. So I think the guiding principle we should take here is think very kind of broadly about kind of the problem. And then I think after a few meetings, we'll get a better sense of, we'll circle in on where we might need to focus. So that would be the spirit.
Thanks. You're up, Deb.
So this was not my question, but MACsec is in IEEE and might also play, although I don't know how much of that's ETLS. But my question was, there's a lot of drafts that have been developed over time to add pre-shared key into traditional asymmetric key exchange with the idea that it would give you short-term post-quantum protection. Do you want those listed in your tables as well? I think you have some of them already, actually.
So this goes a little bit more in the So this goes a little bit more in the question of what specifically we're listing. So currently what we're dealing mostly and what I have seen that people have been caring about into the different protocols is the asymmetric part of cryptography that deals into those protocols, specifically because of thinking about the quantum Shor algorithm that goes again. We haven't really considered about symmetric cryptography, and there's some debate in the cryptographic community if we ever have to be really considering that or not. In the case of a pre-share key, the assumption is that if that pre-share key was already generated in a quantum safe way, then you're ready to go. So maybe we could have maybe a consideration somewhere in the document actually addressing this, because maybe listing all of the pre-share key drafts that are many on the IETF might be a little bit too much for that specific list, but we might have considerations there.
I think what Deb was talking about.
Specifically a pre-shared key add-in in addition to an asymmetric key exchange. So it's
Yet another use of the word hybrid.
Stop. let's not call that hybrid. So Scott Fuller's got a draft, right? So he's got for IPsec, he's got, what is that, 8774 or whatever?
It's an RFC, not a draft.
Yeah, sorry, there you go. I'm sorry. My apologies. But it's the add-in part that makes it post-quantum secure for an asymmetric key exchange. My question is whether you want those in the table. I don't think there's that many of them. I think there's a handful.
And I think those can all go into one section on the table for the people who are more concerned about PQC for key exchange and such like that. Who here is, other than Deb, where it's almost midnight for her, who here is interested in that particular topic of the quote hybrids or whatever, where it's with a pre-shared key? I see Russ waving his hand, although he's directly behind Yoav, who I thought wrote one of the documents for IPsec. So, Russ, would you consider adding a section to the document and collect a few of those? Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
And would
Scott.
TLS be included? Because it, of course, could use a pre-shared key.
Sure. Whichever of the mechanisms where that has been discussed, I think that would be good for somebody who's, especially for someone who says, I'm really afraid of large keys and large signatures or both. What do I do? It would be useful for us to list things where other people have come up with stuff.
Yeah. One of the topic line items I think is missing is those protocols where we suspect there's a problem and haven't actually looked for a solution. For example, Lake is a possibility.
I'm sorry, say that again?
A Lake.
Okay.
Lightweight authenticated key exchange. I think we need a place to keep around those places.
Thank you for volunteering on that. Or actually, go ahead.
Oh, also a section for maybe orphan protocols.
Well, we have that. That's the last bullet on the list. But those are different than like Lake and such like that. So please add those. Yep.
Armando Faz on the mic. Does this group is willing to accept variants of cryptographic algorithms? For example, if for the migration to one specific protocol, we need to deviate from what is the description of the algorithm in the NIST standard. So does this group is willing to take like this kind of variations?
So this is only to list the specific documents, and specifically about the cryptographic algorithms, that would be something that CFRG deals with, maybe in collaboration specifically with what NIST is going to standardize or will not standardize, but that's the decision from the cryptography part of the IRTF.
Yeah, I think my question was more like to the general working group, not specifically to this document.
So again, our charter is that we will not be doing protocol work. I'm sorry? No, yeah, right. Yeah, or algorithm work. If what you're suggesting is that there might be future cryptographic work, take it to SecDispatch, take it to CFRG or wherever. But once there's a draft on that, that would be appropriate to go in here. And again, we've already got 5 sections, although Russ just offered to add a 6. It's okay if this has 8 or 9 or 10 sections. Even if it's a long table, it will be valuable to people. So if you've come up with a new thing that should be in the table, and it doesn't even have to be a draft. If you have a document somewhere else that covered this, we can be listing academic papers and such like that as well. If it's on a topic where we can fill in the first column in a way that people will understand it, and the second column has a reasonable URL, we can go for it.
Thank you.
Mike?
Mike Ainsworth. I got up here to speak to the non-IETF stuff should be included thing. To me, the value of this list is sort of a before you go invent something new, check if it's already been solved. And if there are great novel solutions to stuff not here that would be useful to people designing stuff here, then yeah, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definite agreement there. And it doesn't even have to be great and novel. One of the things I discovered long ago when I dabbled in IEEE, and it was really just as a tourist and not for a very long time, was that the multi-stakeholder model in this room or in this venue is very different than the multi-stakeholder model in IEEE, very different than the multi-stakeholder model in ETSI, et cetera. Quite frankly, very different than the multi-stakeholder model inside of NIST. So if any of those people are doing something, even if it's weird, but they're doing something with good intention, and it affects our thinking, it is perfectly reasonable for us to list this here. This is one of the reasons why this is not going to be an RFC. An RFC looks like it's locked down, you know, that it's real and such like that. This is not going to be that. This is going to be a directory of ideas. It would be great if most of them were good ideas, but we don't have to have a guarantee there. So that somebody reading this will find value and maybe even suggest new ones. So I'm actually thrilled with, I forgot who asked at the beginning of where are we going to do non-IETF ones. We've got a lot that we can do here. Oh. Andrew, you're next.
Some constraints that are assumed, and then a review of those to see if they are valid or not.
Andrew, we lost the first part of that sentence.
A review of assumptions and constraints that people may think they're operating under. As in some of the research that we've been doing, we see that you know, we make assumptions and constraints on what we can and can't do relative to protocol changes, and they may or may not be valid. And what I'm seeing with post-quantum, in some cases it may drive protocol changes, in some cases it might not, due to the characteristics of the algorithms. And so it would be good to look at those assumptions and constraints and have a good review on them, see about their validity or get feedback on them, get discourse on them. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Are you volunteering to possibly do that? Because you, again, you're one of the people who've looked at the constraints in DNS. Sorry to bring up the nasty word that everyone thinks breaks the internet.
Everybody hates it.
But there are, I think, as in the last couple of years, as people have come up with some ideas of doing post-quantum, they have looked at how does this affect, you know, they're not looking to do post-quantum, they're doing post-quantum in this protocol. Does it drop in? Does it slide in? Do we need to, like, you know, wedge it in and such? I think that either a document on that across the protocols across the IETF, or at least individual documents on that of protocol changes needed to deal with post-quantum algorithms, I think would be very valuable.
Let me talk to some of the people I've been collaborating with. I may not be lead on it, but I know people who might want to be lead on it, like Sophia. Anyway, anyway, but or you. No, I'll do something on the email list related to that.
Great. I think that would be valuable here, and that's would be another section in the list if we have a couple of documents saying, for this protocol or this set of protocols, we had these constraints and that's why we went this way. Or we had these constraints and therefore we had to change the protocol in these ways. I think that would be valuable as well. I don't know how valuable those will be for the protocols coming from outside the IETF, because that would mean some understanding. But even though I'm not at all a TLS geek, if I saw a document on what TLS had to do to make this work, I think that would be fairly useful.
And it's really good to get a discourse across the working groups, because different people may be assessing them, you know, differently. And yeah, getting a broader discourse might get more synergy and consistency and solutions. So that would be a goal of that sort of discourse.
Great, thanks.
One of the goals. All right, thanks.
Yeah. Anything more on the grand list for now? I mean, I sort of imagine some people are doing pull requests as we're talking, but anything more for this discussion? Oh, wait, we've got somebody coming in the queue.
John.
Yeah, hello. I just, the point about the implementations and interop testing, as you know, in the X509 era, we ran the hackathon this week, and it just seems like that venue would be perfect for this kind of thing, especially as these new algorithms come, right? We're actually looking for a diversity of algorithm implementations. We have, a lot of us are using the libopen quantum safe, but of course, anyone that has other implementations, we want to test against them, right? So it's a perfect venue for that. So I guess there's other protocols or whatever needed as well. They could also do hackathons, or it's a wonderful thing that the IETF does that. So I just would encourage people to form hackathon teams or come join our team in X509.
So that's great, John, and thank you for pointing it out. If there will be more interoperable testing between the different post-quantum algorithms, that is great, or the protocols itself. I just want also to suggest that I know that you have a GitHub repository after the hackathon. If you can list that into the list of, thank you, Santa Pia.
And if it turns out that we need to have, if it would be useful to have interim online hackathons in between meetings, this working group can be the place where people suggest that on the list. We can call it, since we are a IETF working group, we can have interim meetings, and an interim meeting can be talk about this, whatever, but it also could be a hackathon. So if the developers here find that useful, please bring it up on the list. We can, Sophia and I can turn the right knobs to turn that into an interim meeting, which will get a bit more exposure and such like that. That might be valuable. Thanks. Okay, with that, we are at other working group business. Sophia and I have one presentation. Does anyone else know that they have other working group business that we will do after ours? Okay. So changing deck here. That would be us. Okay, I'm going to fly this one. Patents and post-quantum crypto. This is not legal advice, okay? You get legal advice from lawyers or legal experts with whom you have a contract or an agreement. Sophia and I are not lawyers or legal experts, and you don't have a contract with us. So this is not legal advice. What this presentation is meant to be strictly factual information to enable the discussion on the mailing list about patents and post-quantum crypto, okay? If at any point in this discussion it looks like I am veering into legal advice, please put your hand up and I will stop. So there is why we're oh, actually, Rich, can you take yourself out of the queue? I forgot to lock the queue before we started. Okay. So, Rich, are you going to do an interrupt right now?
Yeah. You're not going to talk about specific patents, right?
Yes.
Because the knowing infringement versus infringement?
We are not talking about infringement.
Okay.
Okay. And again, at the point where I have said something that you think is advice, put your hand up and I will stop.
It's not advice, it's knowing.
I understand. If it looks like I'm saying I know something about
not if you know something, but if you tell us something.
I am not telling you anything here.
Oh. Good
Rich,
to know.
Seriously, wait for it. But if I do go there, stop me at that point. Okay. You haven't looked at the slides yet. Yeah. Okay. So the why here is that NIST, chose Crystal's Kyber. On the mailing list, on NIST's mailing list itself, there was an active discussion about patents. Okay, that's a factual statement. There was a discussion about patents for Crystal Kyber. And NIST indicates that there are 2 patent portfolios that relate to Crystal's Kyber. And here on the next slide, NIST has published a detailed description, and there's a link there, of what it believes are the patents on Crystal Kyber and what it is doing about licensing these patents. That is NIST. That's not Sophia. That's not Paul. And in fact, it's almost nobody in the room other than Ken. I don't know if there's 1 or 2 other NISTies in the room. It says, quote, NIST has entered into 2 patent license agreements to facilitate adoption of NIST announced selection. Says a lot more than that, but that was sort of the pull quote. So the document that is linked here might be of interest to you if you are implementing Crystal Kyber. Note the might there, okay? This is not a suggestion that it is or it isn't. So what these patents might mean for you, and notice, let's take a moment, everyone look around the room and notice how many different people are here and people with different roles. Some are software developers, some are protocol developers, some aren't any of this. We don't know what these patents mean to you because we're not you. In fact, we're barely each other, right? So the NIST license may or may not apply to you, depending on what you implement, how you do things and things like that. We don't know. We're bringing this to you for information. And in specific, some people have said in public, oh yeah, not a problem. They are not worried about the patents that NIST has discussed. But other people have said in private that they are very worried about it. Note that somebody saying something in public or private about their worry is not factual information other than how they feel. It's not telling you how you should feel. Basically, nobody has the same threat model, the same patent issues and such as anybody else. So let's talk a little bit, because we are an IETF working group. Let's talk about patents, cryptography, and the IETF. Some of us have been doing this longer than others, and the IETF has a really long history, more than 25 years, of dealing with patents specifically about cryptography. Yeah, I don't need to talk about gray hairs and such like that, but there's a bunch of us there. There are IETF rules that took a long time to develop, very contentious, but they are specific rules, and they're in BCP 79. That's a link. Please go read it if this concerns you. One of the things the rule says is that you should do IPR disclosure. So I went and looked for IPR disclosures about Kyber and didn't find any yet. I'm sorry, I didn't find any. That might change over time. I may have searched wrong. There might be IPR disclosures that relate to Kyber, but I looked hard and I couldn't find any. So this might be the least factual statement in this deck because I could have just screwed up. If that concerns you, go do your own search. The IETF IPR search page is really, really good. It applies to a whole lot of people other than us. So here are some of the sad rules, and I think this is why Rich was jumping up. I could be wrong, but there may or may not be more patent claims on Kyber. Dunno. There may be patent claims on other post-quantum cryptography algorithms. Dunno. I assure you I have none. I actually haven't asked you. Okay, fine, cool. I guess I shouldn't have done that live, but you know. But we don't know. If you want to know about where there might be patent claims, do not ask us. We are the people at the front of the room. That's irrelevant. And when someone claims that they have a particular patent or they know a particular patent that applies, it might or might not be true. What we have seen over the last 25 years in the IETF is someone says patent X applies to protocol Y, whatever, you know, algorithm Y or whatever. And there's often a debate about that. That would indicate that there are more than one opinions when someone says something does or does not apply. Someone says this does not apply to that. And there is also a debate about that. So when you hear somebody say something, you can't assume that you could hear somebody else say either the opposite or half of that or whatever. Also, do note that this room is full of people who are not from the United States. And it's not full of people who are from the United States, but different countries have different patent laws. So when somebody says X applies to Y, they probably didn't list which of the 235 jurisdictions they were talking about. So this gets really messy. And I'm saying that not in specific about Kyber, but I'm saying this about, we've got more than 25 years of experience where it is not summarizable other than it was messy and it was loud. So I'm going to unlock the mic line, but only after I've done 2 more slides. So you can get to, normally once something like this is brought up in the IETF, people will give an opinion. And legal advice sounds like you should do this, or we shouldn't do that, or I'm doing this on legal advice and such like that. That's legal advice. Let's not do that here. Your legal advice is just as valid as mine, and you saw that I invalidated it many slides ago. It's just not valuable here. The fact, like, if you haven't gotten legal advice, but you think you know it, great. We all do. In fact, if I had who here thinks they already have legal advice about patents, right? It's like, that's not really that interesting. Please don't go to the mic with legal advice. So please don't go to the mic line. But, and specifically because, and I mean, you can, I'm saying that's a please, that's not a demand. Anything important that you say at the mic is going to be much more valuable if you actually write it down, think first, write it down and send it to the list. Mic lines in the IETF tend to be person A says something, person B responds and such like that, and it never goes to the list. So that both excludes people. Deb is up at midnight. There are people for whom it's even worse. It excludes people who aren't listening, and it actually prevents good discussion from happening. So please don't go to the mic if you have something that would be much better said on the list. And then my last point is, if I said anything that was not factually correct, absolutely nail me at the mic line. This was supposed to be only factual. I think I did it okay. I could be wrong. But really what we want for the mic line are statements about what this means in general, not your view. And speaking of people who have gone through this before, I'm opening the mic line and Bob Hinden is there.
Hi, I'm Bob Hinden. The only thing I'm going to add, which is something I don't think you said, is that it is in the IETF working groups can make standardization decisions based on the state of IPR claims.
Correct.
Can choose to standardize something or not standardize something based on that.
Right.
So that's something I think this group can consider.
Yes, but we don't get to standardize anything in this group anyways.
Okay, well, maybe that doesn't matter then, but that is something that, you talked a lot about all of this in the IETF, and that's an important part that you didn't say.
So say at the mic, because you did bring up something very important, which is even though we don't get to standardize anything in this working group, we don't get to develop protocols or cryptography, this working group is meant to be valuable to a couple of dozen other working groups in the IETF. The reason why we brought this up here is because it's the general place to do it. If there is discussion to happen on a mailing list, it is fine for it to happen on this mailing list because we believe that there is cross-pollination to the working groups where that matters. And so Bob has a very good point. The specter of a patent is not necessarily, does not have a direct one-to-one correlation with what a working group can do. So I will go back, even though I'm going to put this slide up, and I'm sorry about the please don't, but thank you for not everyone getting in line about this. Please read BCP 79. Some of the process documents that the IETF produces are long and boring. This one happens to not be that bad. It got long, it got shorter, it got long again, and it got to a medium size. It really was distilled very well. So thanks, Bob. And Jen, I'm shocked, but I'm happy.
No, I'm Queen Dagonis. I was going to say something, but you just gave me an advice of thinking about it. And if I decide to say something, send an email would be better way to do it. But I'm not sure if your advice was a legal advice or not, but that was an advice. So thank you. So,
Jesus, no, that's a very fair point because, well, no, actually anything here at the mic or on the list is all in the IETF context, which we followed the note well by. So I hope it wasn't legal, but now while you're there though, so you have a mailing list, you have the post-quantum at NIST mailing list, where, as I mentioned before, folks have talked about patents. Do you have a desire for, how do you feel about about sort of cross-posting or things going on one mailing list or another? I don't mean to put you on the spot. So as background, we had dinner the other night. We were talking about this and that. He started to talk about patents. I said, hold that thought, squirrel. And because I didn't want him to know about this. So how do you feel about the lists and having multiple lists where this might come up?
For us, any inputs to us are very welcome, and we would receive it. We mostly recommend it to have all the comments sent to the official mailing list. But anything you would want to share with us in person or at different conferences or different revenues, we would welcome them as well, either in private conversations or in the public channels. So because I know some cases people don't feel comfortable sharing their opinions or thoughts in the public with us. So that's why we welcome private conversation as well. So yeah, and even right now we following the mailing list over here because we believe there will be a lot of valuable information from this discussion. So we welcome it and we appreciate it.
Regarding in general discussions about patents or non-patents or PQC, also and cross-pollination across different mailing lists, please note that we do have a code of conduct. So if you're going to be using any kind of language, it has to be deemed appropriate according to the note well and the code of conduct that we have.
Oh, did I do something? I used some wrong word or something? I
No,
got a
no,
warning.
I'm gonna charge you. I'm sorry.
No, because you say right after I finished.
Not you. No. As you've seen from your own mailing list, it doesn't always stay that civil.
Right. Yeah. Be professional. Respect people. Yep.
Yep. I think I might have to log in again. Yeah, well, if you take over, I just lost connectivity. Okay. So I think we're okay. And also, I'm not seeing anyone else. No. Oh, so, Nalini, you're in the queue. We won't be able to take you out of the queue, but go ahead while we're rebooting. Oh, looks like I'm alive again. Nalini, please. We're not hearing you yet, Nalini.
I think Nalini wanted to share screen. I don't know why. So
No, I'm not comfortable with sharing screen at the moment. Or maybe she just hit the wrong buttons. Nalini, are you meaning to speak into the queue? There you go. Hi. But we're not hearing you yet. We're seeing you now. And now we're not seeing you either. Okay. Oh. Nalini, you're coming. Okay, I guess you've dropped out of the queue then. Oh, you went offline, just like us. Okay. Anything more on this for a mic line? Again, I'm expecting to have discussion on the mailing list. I'm expecting not to participate that much myself. If we as chairs have to step in, that means that it isn't going very well. As Sophia just said, code of conduct. But I believe that some people here in the room, and certainly some people on the list, have valuable information about patents that they might, and post-quantum crypto, that they might want to share on the list, things that are not legal advice. And as you know, as we go along, we can wing it. I'm hoping that most of the other discussions are have a lot more traffic than this one. Some of us have a lot of experience with that not being the case. But I think that then, we're pretty good. So with that, we are at any other business. And we go back to the chair slides. We share and we go all the way to the end. Anything else for today? I'm perfectly happy if we leave early. I've got a bus in 55 minutes. Anything else for today? Please, well, here, you can summarize your half.
Yes, so we had a couple of presentations. So any action item we will be sending into the list. We will be sending all of the list of the drafts and the PQC for engineering and the grand list of working groups and PQC for you to take a look. Again, regarding the last presentation, please be mindful and don't share legal advice if you don't, I'm not a lawyer.
Even if you are.
Even if you are. And note again that we will have a code of conduct on the mailing list. And even though in other mailing lists that might not be the case, here at the IETF we do have.
Yep.
And with that, I guess.
Yeah, and so the action items from today, by the way, I've been a chair a zillion times, and guess what I forgot to do at the beginning? Ask for someone to take minutes. It's on me. I'm going on vacation for a week, so you won't get them for a week, but I will listen and produce minutes in, like in a week and a half or so. But the action items I'm remembering are that we are going to have a call on the list to make the hybrid document a working group document. The engineering draft is not yet a draft, and
Tim decided to take that.
Tim's going to take that on. No rush on that, but it might be a short document if what it is a bunch of references to other documents. And
in the grand list of protocols,
yeah.
We're going to be adding a section for other extra protocols and also for our pre-share session keys and also more interop testing. And that's basically it. And then we have Deb in the queue.
Deb?
You may not have asked for minute takers, but you've got minutes.
I've loved you forever, Deb, but even more so today.
No, it's not me. I looked. It's Joe Salloway and somebody else.
I love Joe Salloway anyways, but thank you, Deb. You just made my day a lot nicer going into a vacation. So thanks very much. And again, on the last bit on the big list, pull requests. If you're not comfortable with doing pull requests, some of us old farts aren't that way. Open an issue, send something to Sophia or I. We would love that to be a central point of information for people on this topic. So with that, thank you. Have a good rest of your day. No, it's not. You go on.